And welcome to Doodle Therapy, a drawing show here on Adobe Live. It's great to be back for day 2. Please join me in welcoming our wonderful guests. All joining us from Hawaii is Roxy and Matt Ortiz of Wood and Wave. Welcome, guys.
Aloha.
Hi.
Yeah, it's
here.
good to have you on. Yeah, yesterday was so fun to chat, and I can't wait to get back into our worlds that we've been building through our illustrations. But before we jump into that, I just want to say hi to everyone who's joining us live. If you are, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, share your name, where you're joining us from, and our random question of the day that all three of us are curious about is, what drawing setup do you have that you use with tools and apps, whether that's digital or analog? What are your favorite tools that you use for drawing? We're all really curious about, what everyone's preferred setup is at home. And we also want to see what's trending right now, like what's the new hotness. So just let us know. I'm really curious. And we'll answer that for ourselves as well. If you're joining us live, welcome. Welcome to Misty, to Tara, Fergie, seeing some familiar faces. So welcome back, as well as to our wonderful moderator, Sam. Welcome, Sam. So if you're new to the stream, Doodle Therapy is a show here on Adobe Live that airs bi-weekly. Every time we're on, we feature a special guest artist, and we just chat about life, chat about their journey. We explore a different illustration-related topic that's an area of the guest's expertise. So we'll get into our explorations this week around world building with Wood and Wave in just a second. And hi to Revered Mike. It's great to see some familiar faces, like I said. So just a little quick announcement though, before we jump in. I do want to say that if you didn't catch it at the end of last stream, this stream will be our final regular Doodle Therapy stream for now, for a while. We are going to have our final Doodle Therapy stream in 2 weeks that we're calling our grand season finale. That will be a special sort of themed stream with 2 former Doodle Therapy guests, Amy Weibowo and Catherine Madden. So we're kind of doing an encore special performance. So thanks as well to Wood and Wave for joining us on, our kind of momentous last regular stream. And yes, like Jeffrey says in the chat, hope you all doodle on. So yeah, I'm gonna jump over here and show some of Wood and Wave's awesome work here on the stream. Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, what you're about, and also answer our random question of the day, which is, what is your drawing setup?
All right, yeah, so Matt and Roxy Ortiz, we paint under the name Wood and Wave. We're a husband and wife art duo team. We have an art studio out here in Honolulu, and we've been painting together since pretty much we met in college. So it's been quite some time we've been collaborating.
It's almost 15 years.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
In a blink of an eye.
And we survived. We even got married.
We're thriving. But yeah, we enjoy creating these landscapes and treehouse scapes. We create these treehouses that are kind of have like sustainable themes. They've got like solar panels and water catchment and aquaponics, but they also have a component of adventure and fun. So they'll have like a half pipe skate ramp, and they'll have surfboards and skateboards and tire swings and slides and all kinds of like crazy clubhousey kind of things that sort of balance that sustainability with fun and just make it sort of an adventure playhouse.
Yeah, we're big on storytelling, so that's always kind of the place that we start from. We're trying to think of, if we're going to create a habitat or like living space for someone, what would that look like in the form of a treehouse? So tree houses are kind of the lens that we view this in, and so the next thing is always like, okay, we've already done one in the shape of a boombox. Okay, the last show we did a kind of community of tree houses in the shape of an owl. And that was for actually the Bishop Museum, which is a natural history museum here in Hawaii. And they do a lot of scientific work with native species. And we have a native species of owl here in Hawaii called the pueo. So we made the treehouse structures into the shape of the native owl. So we're able to,
cool.
yeah. So we really like to touch on, location, or if it's a client, like the company mission, kind of taking from the different stories or natural like flora and fauna that's in a space and being able to incorporate that in there too.
And last question was, I believe, what device or what are we working on? Today we're working on the iPad and using Fresco. I love the way Fresco feels. I've been using the pencil mode and just doing the sketch that you can see sort of developing. And the idea behind this is that it is a dragon, like a Chinese dragon.
Oh, they can't see it yet.
Oh.
So you-
I will hop on over.
Oh, yeah,
Let's just
sorry.
jump on over to
Yeah.
the drawing board. Yeah.
yeah. So we can jump to that. Now they can see it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm working on the dragon and just sort of taking inspiration from both the dragon dance and also some of the architectural roof like stylings that are happening.
Amazing.
Roof structures. So yeah, super fun. You know what's really cool, guys, is I started using like super analog because I love drawing in pencil.
Here, I can hold it.
I'm actually using like a straight edge ruler.
It's like one of those clear acrylic rulers that has a grid on it,
Right.
but it's transparent.
The
so
thing
you can
is,
see.
there is a ruler function, of course, that you can use, which is great. You can toggle that on and then you slide it around and you can do a lot of parallel lines. But because I'm working in perspective, I'm always having to adjust that angle a little bit. And I'm trying to just work fast. So if you get rid of that and you just use the ruler, I'm just going back to like the basics, just like
Here's a little high-tech tip for you.
doing a bunch of lines.
Yeah, no, that's a pro tip. I think it also makes it fun.
there.
Like it's more fun to just like draw with like the analog tools sometimes.
Right? It
Because
is.
you could do the whole pull the line and wait until it like snaps to a straight line, but I'm just really impatient. I'm just like, I just want to make straight lines really quick. Do a bunch.
Yeah. There's a nice tactile quality to
There
it.
is. I'm holding on to the analog as much as I can.
Yeah.
But you can see from the different pictures here, we like to do research. So because we're building out these kind of architectural structures, we're able to look at different renderings and drawings to put things in perspective and create the angle that we need to make it into that dragon shape.
Yeah. So I'm also curious, I'm seeing a lot of friendly faces in the chat, but nobody actually answered our question, which is what your drawing setup is like. So I am really curious. Please let us know. Because I want to see what's the vibe right now, what's going on? What are the waves in the industry for drawing? I'm just curious. So let us know what your preferred drawing tools of the moment are. And so yesterday, we saw you guys start on this all the way from a sketch that you had done and scanned in. So if anyone is curious about that process, you can check out day one's recording with Wooden Wave. So I'm curious right now, like, how are you approaching what you're drawing? Like, is it going to be the final line art? Are you doing a more loose approach with the intention of like painting in shapes in the future? Like, how are you approaching what you're refining right now?
Yeah, good question. The direction of this piece right now is strictly in the doodle realm. I really love that idea of drawing and just sort of letting go of sort of over planning things. A lot of times when we're working for a commercial project, you're really constrained by, DPI, size of piece, number of layers, all these kind of things. And right now it's just kind of like the loose idea exploration realm. However, this would be pretty accurate to how we would go about creating an image to become a mural. Because what we really need for a mural is just clean, clear line work. Or this is kind of clear enough for our needs, because we'll take this and then we'll end up, protecting it or gridding it out onto a wall. And then the coloration can actually just happen, after that.
Yeah. We just need the high contrast of the clean line work so that we know what we're drawing when we transfer it to the wall. So we do work out our compositions fully in kind of like the illustration before we get to the wall. Like we don't leave the drawing up to question as what's going on the wall, but the painting aspect, like filling it in with color, for example, that we can do afterwards. But we will figure out all of perspective is huge for us, right? Mm-hmm. So that's something that needs to be figured out before we get to a big wall. Right. So it gets all planned out in this phase, and including all the different kind of aspects of the story that we want to incorporate. There is some space for spontaneity, like, we'll talk to someone on the street and they'll tell us maybe a story or something, or give us an idea like, oh, you should add, whatever it is, like this kind of flower is actually really popular in our neighborhood. And it's like, oh, great, let's add that in there. Or, we'll be next to, when we were with you up in San Jose and we did that mural, it was on the side of a place that sold mochi ice cream, and we love mochi ice cream. So there was a little table where we had tea, and so we added a plate of mochi ice cream. On the mural. We had painted in a little table with a teacup on top of it, so then we added in a plate with some mochi ice cream on there, since that was a popular reason for people to stop at that particular eatery, was the kind of mochi ice cream that they had.
Yeah, that mural too, if you had gone back in time, you would have seen we had a very rough sketch of that samurai treehouse that we did in Japantown. And that started in the same way that we're going now, and we just built the sketch up and kind of defined it a little more each time. And then the final mural is really where the most detail and painting kind of happens.
Mm-hmm. So, cool. We also got some cool responses in the chat. About our question. So welcome Val, says that they use a Wacom Cintiq and Fresco on the iPad like Matt. Tiffany Zhang, welcome Tiffany, uses iPad with Procreate. And Jeffrey says he uses Photoshop, Lightroom, and Mike uses pencil on paper, old school. So thanks for letting us know. On my end, you can't go wrong with just pencil and paper. On my end, I'm using Photoshop on my desktop. I'm using a Wacom Cintiq. And for what I'm drawing today, I'm drawing a garden of flowers. That's going to be a title card for a project I'm working on. If there's any Animal Crossing fans in the house, you'll know that in the Nintendo video game Animal Crossing, you can grow flowers, and you can also like hybridize flowers and crossbreed them. So if you have like red tulips and white tulips, you can make pink tulips. And there's also like crazy combinations you could do. Like you could make an orange daisy from a red and yellow daisy, and then from orange daisies, you can make rare black daisies. So it kind of is a rabbit hole that you can just keep like falling into. And I've been making these like really cute Animal Crossing planters with my friend Amy, that we haven't like formally announced them yet, but here are some of the characters. It's just a quick little preview. And so for our project, I wanted to make a title card that says, the name of it and kind of what it's about, and also have like some of the flowers that are in the Animal Crossing universe, and then some of the animal characters that are in Animal Crossing. So that is the world that I'll be building out today. It's kind of like Animal Crossing inspired and like adjacent. Awesome. Val says they are a big Animal Crossing fan. Mike says they grow flowers in their yard. Yeah, so the problem after you play a lot of Animal Crossing, for me at least, is whenever I see normal flowers on the street, I think to myself like, oh, those blue flowers, they must have like crossbred 2 white flowers. Or like, oh, that person has like pink and purple flowers, like that must have taken forever. Because in Animal Crossing, it takes a long time to get those 2. So that's what I will be working on. So I'm curious, Roxy and Matt, since that's your approach when you do mural painting. Oh, and just for some context for stream viewers, Roxy and Matt and I met at the Powwow San Jose Festival in 2019. So we were both muralists painting there. So my painting style is like, I have everything pretty much locked on the computer, and like everything is like digitally finalized before I start painting on the wall. And usually if I improvise too much, I end up regretting it. And I like freak out, and it's like hard to undo when you're painting on like a 30-foot wall.
Right.
Because you have to like, it's very strenuous work. So I'm curious, since you guys are able to take a more loose like line work and then apply the painting afterwards, like the colors and shapes, do you ever have times where you're like, oh shoot, like this, I like improvised and like I totally went off in like a weird direction and now I have to like start over? Or does that like not really happen?
That's a good question.
Let's see. I think color choices sometimes, like we'll paint something and then we'll realize like, oh, that's a little bit more yellow than we're going for, and then so we might have to paint one part of a structure over just because it just isn't reading as well with the rest of the piece or something like that.
Got it.
But we do work out a lot of our color in sketches as well. Some of it just kind of ends up being intuitive because with the tree houses, we'll just, the branches are going to be brown, the leaves are going to be green. Like there's a lot of things that are kind of already set. And then we have certain colors that we'll kind of go to play off of that. So because the brown and the green are so dominant, then we know that our houses and the structures aren't going to be brown or green, so that there'll be contrast.
Yeah. There is a lot of dialogue though. I think that's what you're talking about. Your version would be like an inner dialogue that happens between you and yourself, saying like, oh, should I have done that? I don't know. That's maybe a mistake. For us, we imagine there's
actual dialogue.
Yeah, I'm having that dialogue within myself. She's having that dialogue. And then we have dialogue with each other as well. So there is a lot of discussion that happens on any mural. And some murals are smooth sailing and other murals have differences of opinion.
Yeah.
And that's because we're all different people. Her color sense is different from mine, and my linear fixations are different from hers. So that's the way it kind of shakes out.
I think that was actually
as long as we're not hungry.
Oh man, if you're hungry, then you're hangry, and then that's nothing good happens when you're hangry.
It's not good.
Because it's physical.
Yeah.
It's so tiring. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, you're sweating, then also, So actually that goes back to one of the questions that we had about how it is working together. And I think it's relevant to any kind of partner relationship, not necessarily just a husband and a wife, but when you have differences of opinion, like where are you able to find a compromise? And I had actually heard an interview with Kate Spade a while back, and she had talked about how she worked with her husband to create the first company. And and their realization was that there's always something that somebody cares about more. And you just have to figure out, like, is that you? Like, are you the person that really cares about it? Or did you just have an idea? And then once, your partner presents something that's different than what you had initially thought, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, you guys can both be right. Like, that structure for us could be yellow, or it could be turquoise. Like, either one works. Like, who cares more that it's their color? Is that the fight you really want to win?
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to realize, like, how much do I care if it's not yellow? Like, I had pictured in my head that it was yellow, but turquoise would work fine too. Like, okay, yeah, if you really, really want that one to be turquoise, like, go for it, And then later you can be like, okay, you got your turquoise house. Now it's my turn. I really want this one to be yellow. Like, you can kind of compromise that way. Like, there's things that you care about more, and so it's just kind of learning to realize that quicker, like, can I live with this that way? I think so. Like, that works out. Let's just go with that. I had a different idea, but yours works out. So I think the sooner you can kind of figure out what those things are, the sooner it's just a decision that gets made and it's not a disagreement.
There was this like blog that I read about relationships, romantic relationships, where they're talking about a system they have with their partner, where if they have a disagreement, they'll say on a scale of 1 to 10 how important that thing is. So it's like there's no point in arguing about something if it's like a 2 for you and like an 8 for your partner. It's like, we'll just go with what you want.
That's great. Okay, we're gonna borrow that.
But hold on.
I'm gonna put that tip in my pocket.
That's a great idea. But what you have to do as well is write it on a piece of paper so that other doesn't know what you're putting. Because you'll be
That's funny.
oh, mine's a 4. And then you'll be like, well, mine's a 6. Or you'll just go one higher. You've got to like do it blind, double blind. That's how
Double blind.
Double
Yeah,
blind
I mean, maybe if you find that you are constantly the one who's the higher number, then you have to do some self-reflection as to like, why
priorities.
you care.
You put a handicap on your partner's number. Like you add 2 points to her number or whatever.
Yeah, like
you're always
or maybe your partner's just a more chill person. That would be it.
Oh, we worked out so much just now.
I know, that's a good goal.
And to answer a quick question I saw earlier in the chat, the finale next week will be, it's like a season finale. Might still bring back Doodle Therapy in the future. I just would like to just take a little break since, you know, things were opening up again and life was getting a little busier with some traveling, and sometimes you even have, like, even with good things, you have to like take a step back and kind of just like refresh so you can come back with like fresh eyes. And since we've been streaming for 1.5 years now, and I'm like super proud of all the awesome streams and illustrations that have come out of the guests and the community as well. And I actually want to take a quick second to switch over to Chrome, where, so if you go to byalicelee.com/doodle-therapy, that's actually the website that I've put together for the Doodle Therapy streams. So normally you'll be able to see the schedule. So you can see here, you know, we have Worldbuilding with Wood and Wave, and then next week, a grand finale with special guests who, like I said, will be Amy and Catherine from the previous streams, an encore. And then you'll see all of the previous guests who have been on the stream. So here's Catherine. I try to put in some fun little details, like if you hover, you can see some like sparkling effects. And also if a dog makes an appearance in the stream, there's a little dog icon. Even if it's like walking around in the background or, you know, barking once. So Xing had a dog as well. And then you can click in, oops, sorry, I turned off my internet. Well, you can click in and then see the both of the links to the playbacks for days 1 and 2. So check that out if you know, you are wanting to binge watch or co-work along to some streams one day. I find that it can be really peaceful, like if you just take an afternoon and are just drawing, you know, to have something on in the background like that. So yeah, thanks to Val for dropping it in the chat. That's byalicelee.com/doodle-therapy. And that's where you can kind of find all the information, including if we, you know, come back in the future. Yeah, so Val, like Val says in the chat, as you know, since Val is someone who's both been a guest as well as a host on Adobe Live, sometimes it can get tiring and you don't want to burn out. And I think that's the case for a lot of creative projects as well. Like sometimes you can be enjoying something, but if you're doing it, you know, for a long time in a row, like it's helpful to just take a breather and just like come back, and then you're refreshed and, you know, you're ready to go again. So yeah, so and welcome to Amy and Susan for joining us in the chat as well. They have been previous guests. Yeah, so oh man, I had a question to ask you guys, but I forgot. Now I remember. So we have a mutual friend in Squidlicker who is an amazing artist, Lolo YS, and at their recent art show in San Francisco at Heron Arts, I asked them a question, which was, I was just wondering how they balance the art side of things, which they seem to have a really strong grasp on. Like they're so expressive with their artwork, so unique, with the commercial side of artistry. For example, like, do they ever, you know, second guess themselves or change an element in their illustration so that it can be more appealing and maybe could sell more prints or copies or, you know, to a more mainstream audience? And their answer really blew me away. Lauren was basically like, I don't really have time to think about the business side of things. It usually just has resolved itself for me. As long as I am just like putting my heart into it and like focusing on that, like the business stuff has tended to follow. And they kept saying like, I just don't have time to like think about the commercial side of things, which totally blew me away. So I'm curious for you guys, like, how do you guys approach the balance of commercial and artistry? For instance, like if you have an art show, presumably, you know, all of it's like self-directed, it's like fine art, but you know, you're also you can also buy those pieces too. Like people will be buying. So how do you balance that? Like, how do you, does that ever creep into your process? Just curious.
I think it does. Like when I think about, right now we have the possibility to do a solo show. I don't think we'll do it until maybe the end of next year, just because everything's so time intensive when you're doing a solo show, just to create a finalized body of work. But I think the questions usually come in actually at the beginning. When I think of in terms of process, like we'll go into our sketchbook, right? Like we referenced how a lot of our ideas, you know, are in an actual sketchbook. And so we'll flip through it and, you know, kind of like we'll make little notations or make a list on the side, like on a Post-it, like, okay, you know, this one seems like it might be a good idea for the show. You know, we'll just kind of make a list and so it'll kind of get filtered out that way. It's like, you know, something that might be something we're really excited about, but like, will that one sell? Like, what is the general, like what kind of audience do you think we have for that type of piece? Or is that kind of something that's more for us? And it just doesn't feel finalized of an idea to become an actual painting, like maybe we'll see a little that. But it's still, because our theme is these kind of treehouse communities, it's always within that. So it's not like something completely out of the realm that we would just do for fun or something like that. Like we don't really do pieces that are just for a commercial aspect in mind.
Okay.
We always want to make it fun for us. So if nobody buys it, we don't really care, because then we'll just have it for ourselves, or we know like one of our friends would be super jazzed on it. So I can, I think, identify with the idea that we don't have time to consider the commercial side too much, but we do for sure. And I think one thing that we've discovered over the last 10 years is we've started to differentiate two different styles that we have. And one is the treehouse style that's really known kind of like on our Instagram, and that we do murals for mural festivals with. But we have what we kind of call our commercial style, which is actually more abstract, colorful.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it usually has more like Hawaiian culture themes to it. And that's what we get hired to do here in Hawaii for, you know, a couple of hotels we've done, shopping centers, that kind of thing, because it fills that commercial need of having to have something really colorful and fun and to attract people to the space and have them really enjoy the space, while also telling some, you know, stories or incorporating different aspects of the location, which is what we love to do, right? That storytelling aspect. So we love both styles. Like, it's not like, oh, we only like our treehouse stuff and that other thing we just kind of do because that pays the bills. We actually really love both styles, and it's a nice breather to not have to do like all the architectural, highly detailed stuff. It's actually pure, really nice to do. It's a
lot more pure painterly expression. We don't have to go into it with a super detailed plan a lot of times. We'll have a rough sketch, but it's kind of therapeutic. Like, that's our doodle therapy to do the other stuff. Doing like super like, perspective has to be correct. You know, I don't want.
We have to be a lot more committed to the idea for our treehouse work. We don't really start randomly doing a treehouse. Like, we kind of have a theme, like, oh, let's do a Chinese dragon one. Like, we love different aspects of the Chinese culture that we both share. So we thought like, oh, this is really, you know, something we want to explore right now. And so we have a definite idea of what we might want to express with that.
Yeah.
And so it gives us the motivation to finish it too. So it becomes something else.
So like we have in Honolulu, we have a really vibrant and old Chinatown. Like, it's one of the oldest Chinatowns
in the U.S.
In the U.S. You could check me on that one. I'm not positive. But regardless, we were talking about this before we got on. Like my great grandfather was immigrated from China, started a dry goods store in Chinatown. Like I know the exact store and location. Of course, it's not in the family anymore. He actually lost it, and it was a long story. But I'm Chinese Hawaiian from him coming here, marrying my great grandmother, and having my grandfather. So there's this whole story of my connection to Chinatown. And so in doing this mural, I'm in the back of my head thinking like, wow, it would be really cool if we found a wall in Chinatown down the street that we could paint this. And it would be special, place-based. It would also be an opportunity for me to throw in something that's personal to me and my family inside of this street, And that would be cool.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
I think that'd be amazing. Yeah.
Let's put that out there. Maybe it'll happen.
Yeah.
Put it out in the universe. Or maybe, I think maybe someone watching that, has a connection somewhere. So, yeah.
It doesn't have to be Hawaii's Chinatown. It could be any Chinatown.
Chinatowns everywhere.
Yes. Do you come to SF? Oh, yeah, we have a Chinatown here.
Yeah. You guys have an amazing Chinatown.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Oakland has one too.
We actually put that on our list for the next time that we're in San Francisco. We're saying how we need to visit it.
That's cool. Well, thanks for your really thoughtful answer. And I'm curious if folks in the chat also have had thoughts about balancing their art with commercial appeal and commercial success. How do you think about that? How do you approach it?
Yeah, and I think one way that we've divided it too a little bit is we have our commercial projects that we're directly commissioned for. Like right now, we're working on a painting that's actually for a couple that's in SF. They hired us to do, like a 3 foot by 4 foot treehouse painting. So that's like a painting commission. But we're also working on an editorial, like a full page illustration for a magazine, and that's also in the treehouse style. But then for this kind of abstract, colorful style, I think that's the next show that we're going to do. It won't be a treehouse one. It'll be more in that abstract style because we haven't actually really done a way for the public to be able to access that style from us. That's usually been directly from like a commercial client. So we're trying to think like, oh wait, people really love those murals. Like, why haven't we made prints using that style or a show or that kind of thing? So we do think about like, oh, we need to give other people access to that part of our creative life. And then if we do, end up fleshing out this current doodle that we're working on and we get it to a finished place, this is an example of a personal project, but we'll likely turn this into a print. So it then becomes kind of like a hybrid personal commercial project because we have...
if that print or that piece doesn't sell, like Mike says, somebody gets it for Christmas. And that's also the reality. Like there's been so many like hats and stuff that we painted back in the day. We used to paint on hats. And it would just be like, this is perfect for so-and-so if this doesn't sell.
Nice.
Yeah, the different iterations of your business, for sure. We used to paint on trucker hats, and then we realized, a tiny painting on a hat lives in the realm of what people expect hat prices to be, which is like $20 to $30 for a trucker hat, right? But if that same painting was on a canvas, hung in a gallery, suddenly you can sell it for $300 or $500 or something.
Or more, right? Depending on the context. So
it's like, wait, why are we painting on
so
trucker hats
hard
again?
on this hat, and it's a full-on painting.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Hours.
We spent so long on this hat.
Like Christmas Eve, I'm like, oh, I gotta get this finished.
Yeah, that's something
you learn, right? You learn.
That's something I've been thinking a lot about with this. I'll show it again quickly, like this Animal Crossing project, because we spend so much time per piece, like per, just in terms of like 3D modeling it, like that's what Amy's been doing, the ceramic side, and then painting it like takes me an hour to sometimes even like 3. So, but then if I like apply my like hourly rate to it, it becomes this like really expensive piece of pottery. But at the same time, it's like a piece of art that, if I painted a canvas or something, like you wouldn't. If I gave you a canvas that I spent like 3 hours on, I'd probably charge a lot more. So it's kind of it's been an interesting exercise to think through the like stories we have about pricing and
value.
all of that. Yeah, and value. Val says they're always thinking about the commercial side of their art, but they recommend. I don't really recommend, quote, worrying about it until it is a burden. It's easy to turn that into a problem. Yeah, or having like a list of versatile products that many things can become, and then you can familiarize yourself with what those options can be. Amy says that she usually mentally separates different projects. So there are projects that she thinks of as commercial, like if she's selling them in her store. Just like our jackets that we've been selling in her store, that pre-order's closed tomorrow for, by the way.
The jackets are so awesome.
Oh, thanks. Where she'll try to do user research and all of that to see if it will sell well and what people want to see. And then she uses those commercial projects to fund her personal work. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. Thanks for sharing, everyone.
Yeah, that's great. There's so many ways you can go about doing it. I think definitely asking the audience helps too. Like I think she mentioned is just figuring out, you might have an idea for something and think of it in terms of whatever format you have in your head, and then you put it out there to an audience, and then suddenly they can come up with way better ideas than you did, right?
Yeah.
And so I think like what you did with the pre-order is a really great way to test ideas too,
Yeah.
Just put it out there, and then that way you're not stuck with a ton of quantity in inventory of things that you really like, but apparently other people are hesitant to buy, right? I think for apparel, this is really kind of relevant too, because you can do things in different colorways. So it's like maybe your tendency or style is to do things in a certain color, that's very high contrast, where other people like more pastel. You can kind of see, what colorway do you think would be best? And then do a poll and see what people like. And so there's definitely different ways to utilize your community to figure things out to make things less stressful. Like you're almost delegating to your community these decisions that in your head you're going back and forth with. And then sometimes you just ask and the answer is like skyrocket clear, you thought maybe it was either or, and it's like, nope, there's clearly a winner in this question.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can never predict. Like when we do an art show and we have several pieces, our favorite kind of like sits there for a while. And the piece that we almost didn't put in is the first one to go, like opening night. And so,
interesting.
Yeah, you just can't predict.
Yeah.
So there's an audience for everything, right?
Yeah. And I hope that's helpful for anyone who might be thinking about this as well. I also want to just take a second in the last 15 minutes of our stream just to revisit the Doodle Therapy page, which before I had my internet turned off, so it didn't work when I clicked into these individual pages. But basically, if you ever want to catch up on Doodle Therapy, you can find these on the Adobe Creative Cloud YouTube page, but you can also find them on this site that I've created that accumulates all of our past streams, past guests together. So it's byalicelea.com/doodle-therapy. And you can find all of our past guest streams here. And then I've also started putting up some community submissions for doodles that community members and guests who have been on the stream have created as part of Doodle Therapy. So thanks to everyone for tuning in. And even though this is our last Doodle Therapy regular stream, and then our final, season finale will be in 2 weeks, you can always catch up on the 30 plus streams that we've done in the past over here. Oh, and thanks to Val for sharing that link as well. Cool stuff.
I like what Sailor HT said in the chat too, about how you can always add personal work to your portfolio. And
yeah,
I think that's great. Like instead of having a piece of personal work that just kind of maybe sits on your desktop, just publish it into your portfolio. And especially if it's something that you're that you really like, you might get hired by a client to do work that's similar, or people might, see it in your portfolio and say like, hey, are you going to sell print for this? And then, you can have your personal work paid for, after you've already created it.
Yeah.
So it's fulfilling in that creative sense, but then you also might, be able to make some money from it as well. So that's a great point.
Yeah. That's cool stuff. It's cool to see, Matt, as you're working on this like super detailed sketch that you're creating. It's cool to see it come to life.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm nerding out on roof tiles right now. So
dang, that is so intense.
The first iteration, I had them just each one of these lines being like cylindrical tiles, and then I went back to the reference image and I was like, oh, wait a second. Actually, there's like a valley between each tile cylinder. So it's like this. And so it's kind of fun that's why I'm not precious about line quality or the cleanliness of the line. And I'm even very consciously choosing to use a pencil. It's the simulacra of, pretending to be working on paper. Like who was working with paper? Was it Mike? Or
yeah.
So it's like I'm still trying to go back to that feeling of it being temporal and kind of hand drawn, and even the sound. Like I miss the sound of paper and lead. So we try and put like a film on our iPad screen to kind of bring that back. We're always moving back towards analog. Music, same thing, Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, the iPad has one of those, what do you call it? Like a film. It's like a cover that you put on it. And it gives it more textured feel so that you have a little bit more resistance on the pencil when you're drawing. Yeah.
Then it wears down your nib a little bit faster, but you're just like, I can't stand it. It's super smooth.
The sacrifice.
Yeah. Val says, quote, I'm not precious about line quality, Matt says, as he works magic before my eyes. And thanks to Chad for saying that you like our jacket. Yeah, it was actually kind of a project that originated on Doodle Therapy in a way. Like I started lettering the phrase with Lauren Hom, who is a lettering artist, and actually came up with that phrase during our stream together in December, and then ended up refining it and designing the whole thing in collaboration with Amy, who has also been a guest on Doodle Therapy. So it's kind of like a full circle kind of thing.
I love it. With the typography, it's such a fun phrase. Are you thinking of making other products now that you've kind of jumped into that kind of jacket project?
So I definitely on my bucket list has been to get more into like textile kind of mediums. So I recently bought a tufting gun and a tufting frame. If there's anyone out there who's watching who's into tufting, punch needle or anything like that, definitely let me know, because I bought it because I had a little bit of time to work on it, but then I ended up not. So it's just been sitting there, but I hope to start tufting some rugs and fun little gadgets for around our studio soon. And I want it to be a part of our next studio show, which will be in SF in October. And then I would also like to eventually buy a embroidery machine. I just have to do some research into it, because they get pretty expensive as they become bigger and bigger. But the bigger ones are nice because then you have more space to work with. So if I end up getting an embroidery machine, then I'm gonna go like absolutely ham over like every piece of like a basic sweater and jacket that I have in my wardrobe, and just like embroider everything. So yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I just love that phrase, making art, breaking hearts. Was just so fun.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, if you do like a black t-shirt with white lettering, I'm gonna buy one for Matt. Like, I'll just put in my pre-order if you end up doing t-shirts.
Making art, breaking.
I want Matt to have one like with that.
But then I need to get a motorcycle to go with my jacket. So I could do that. My jacket that says Breaking Hearts.
The artist on a motorcycle.
That's awesome.
That is a nice visual.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's like the jacket that my younger self would have especially liked. You know, like when I just remember like being 21 and just like trying to figure out what I wanted to do artistically, being like super lost because I was in a full-time job that wasn't quite what I wanted to do, but I just didn't know where to go. And then I was also like a total hot mess in terms of like relationships. So I feel like my 21-year-old self would have like especially appreciated this jacket and the phrase.
I feel you. Yeah, I think that's around the time I had we call it like the quarter life crisis, right?
Yeah,
I think that's when I went to grad school.
What do I do with my life?
Do you go to grad school? Do you like try to do something? It's like, let me go to grad school, and
grad school will fix all my problems.
That'll take up a couple of years, and then I can delay the decision of what to do after that.
Yeah.
But I am a grad school dropout, so I decided not to continue with that decision, which I have never.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So.
What led you to why did you decide to end up leaving grad school?
One thing about graduate school is it sends you on a very conceptual art route, because you're doing so much work into art history and theory, and the museum and the gallery is definitely elevated as your end point or like high point of what an MFA graduate should go for in achievement, I think, or like aspects of success, that kind of thing, versions of success. And I love teaching. So I was thinking, you know, I already taught with the university. I could continue teaching with the university, you know, as an MFA grad, you know, maybe you become a professor, something like that, do a lot of museum gallery type shows. But then simultaneously, Matt and I had already started doing the screen printing of t-shirts. Like, we love t-shirts. So that's why I automatically think of your work on a shirt. It's just kind of like this affordable thing that people can buy and wear art and celebrate art in that sense. So I really love kind of that aspect of art. I think we're doing more just gallery shows on our own, like in our own kind of art hustle. And I realized that there were just other opportunities that I didn't really need that piece of paper for, like the MFA diploma, right?
Right.
Because we'd already started seeing some success with our shirts. We'd gotten freelance work. I was already seeing that, you know, being a professor is kind of the only reason why I would hang on to that diploma. And I was already seeing opportunities that didn't include that in my future. So, yeah, so I was thinking, well, if having some kind of like teaching in a university, if that's not what my end goal is, like there's not really a reason I need that piece of paper. We're already being invited to these different shows. We're kind of doing our own thing where we're generating a career. So I've made great connections. I've, you know, learned about exhibiting my work and a lot of the great things that you get as being part of a graduate. Gallery design. I had 1.5 years of having my art studio and kind of establishing my own like art routine and art practice. So it set me up with those kind of professional skills. And the program that I was in was a 3-year program, and I did half of it. I did 1.5 years. So I felt like I had gotten what I needed from the graduate school experience, and I didn't need that diploma, which would be the only reason to stay in for the rest of it. So I stepped down, and I still have a great relationship with all my professors and things like that. And they actually what's funny is they bring me back to speak to their graduate students and their BFA students as an example of someone who dropped out, like who went through the program but dropped out, to just show like that there's options. And like, because I'm not saying like this school is terrible, like that's why I left, you know. I'm just saying like I had a great time here, you know. And these are the tools that I took from my time here, and here's how I use them in the career that I have now that didn't include a future in academics in the university sense.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like a lot of my friends, so I'm 29 right now. So most of my friends in my age range are like in the 27 to like 31, late 20s, kind of figured out your stuff, starting to figure it out a little bit more. So I feel like a lot of my friends are either really leveling up in their careers, like getting that promotion or like starting their company or thing that they have always wanted to do, or they're going to grad school right now in order to like jumpstart that next chapter. So it's kind of been interesting to see that and think about, you know, that path. And thanks to Val for the reminder that we have about 5 minutes left in the stream. Yeah, I mean, as we wrap up, I want to say thanks to Matt and Roxy for joining us. It was really fun to bring on some of my mural buddies from, you know, the powwow scene. And and I want to say thanks to everyone for joining us as well. I would also like to say, you know, if you are a Doodle Therapy viewer, whether you just started watching or you are maybe like a longer time viewer, definitely tune into our streams next Wednesday and Thursday, the 25th and 26th at 3 to 4 p.m. Pacific time. We'll be having our grand season finale with 2 former Doodle Therapy guests. We were going to do it in person. I thought that it might be a fun full circle thing because I originally pitched Doodle Therapy to Adobe as a way to stay connected during the quarantine. So I thought it might be fun for our last streams to actually be in person. But we'll see, pending like the COVID stuff happening in our area. But regardless, it'll be a really fun stream, and I think it'll be a fun way to, you know, put an end to this season. And it might come back in the future. I'll definitely be back here on Adobe Live and with streaming and all that. It's just that I've decided to take Q4 off from streaming for now. So, yeah.
That's great. We'll tune in.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks for making
thanks for making it available. It's really useful to have, it's like to see the insight of other artists and creatives, because we're always working alone on our own project. So it's nice to have that community, even if it's virtual.
Yeah, and I also want to say, if you want to see if Roxy and Matt end up finishing this piece, because you never know, maybe it'll turn into a mural that they're talking about. You should definitely follow them. Check them out. They're at wooden_wave on Instagram and wooden wave art on Twitter. So, and if you don't know how to spell that, it's right above their head in the little window. And also thanks to Val for sharing, you know, those links. And, you know, who knows? You know, you should just follow them and find out. Maybe they'll end up finishing it. There's only one way to find out. So, and then if you end up creating a doodle as well, or if you have any questions about anything we covered or talked about, feel free to ask me, hit me up, or hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, or Behance. I'm at by Alice Lee. And I too will likely be finishing this Animal Crossing, you know, it's like an oil painting garden piece, I guess, vibe that I'm creating for our project. And if you also want to find out more about our cute little pots, we'll start sharing some more info about it on socials then. Yeah, and I think also for our stream in 2 weeks with Amy, we will talk about these as well. So if that's of interest, definitely tune in then. Yeah, Mike says the sound of the broom hitting the floor is the sound of the party ending. Yeah, but although I would say this is not the broom hitting the floor, this is us like leaving on a super high note. So it's not like being forced to leave or anything. It's like the part, like we cheersed and then the party ended.
Right.
Cool. So yeah, I just want to say, as we start to wrap up on the stream, thanks for joining us live. Thanks to all of our regular Doodle Therapy viewers. Check out the Doodle Therapy website if you ever, are wanting to watch some streams or find that stream that, you want to reference. And also thanks to Roxy and Matt for joining us. It's really fun to catch up and to chat. It has been a while. Thanks to our wonderful moderator, Val, as well as our moderator, Sam, who has been moderating for us for the last year and a half. And also thanks to my boyfriend, Jeffrey, who has been running the tech side of things. It's like an unsung hero that, the one behind the camera. So thanks again, and have a great rest of your day, everyone. See you next week, next week, 3 to 4 p.m., next Wednesday and Thursday for our grand series finale, or season finale. Bye.
Bye. Keep in touch.
Bye.
Bye-bye.